Hey, seventh grade. It's Tuesday for me. You all watching this on Monday. I'm kind of a sweaty, hot mess, to be perfectly honest right now. I just got finished thoroughly, like as in moving everything from one side of the room, thoroughly sweeping, mopping, moving everything to the other side, thoroughly sweeping, mopping, and I've done some dusting, so you all will be coming back to a cleaner classroom. Might as well do something. So help me keep the classroom clean when you come back. First of all, let's talk literature. It's hard enough to remember literature after a Thanksgiving break when it's not until Thursday. But remembering literature and everything's online, I know it's hard. Don't forget literature. All the Rights and Riches stuff is due Thursday, so be sure to check out my video over on literature, part of LMS that explains literature, and do it by Thursday. And then go back on Thursday, and we'll start Christmas Carol. I'm going to try to find someplace Christmassy looking to be reading, discussing Christmas Carol with you instead of having books of the Bible and a backwards clock behind me. Okay, let's talk history. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'll be perfectly honest. This hit at the worst time for you because the Protestant Reformation is just hugely important and can be a little hard to understand. But, literally all of history kind of hinges to an extent on the Protestant Reformation. I mean, it's hugely important. And it's hard to understand just reading it without you all in front of me to have a conversation. But we're going to do the best that we can. So here we go. Before going on to chapter 14, last week you should have finished reading chapter 13. We had started it the week before, and then you finished it the 2 days before Thanksgiving. So I want to review it real quick. Remember, chapter 13 starts out by talking about, reminding you some of the dudes before the official Martin Luther and the official Protestant Reformation. We talked about the Inquisition and how messed up that was. Basically, they were looking for somebody to convict of heresy, and they were going to figure out a way to make it stick. We reviewed once again Wycliffe and Huss, both of whom we had talked about before. Remember, Wycliffe is the dude who had the Bible first printed in English. He's the dude that he gets to die a nice natural death, but then in 1415, the Council of Constance had his writings burned. Then in 1428, they decided to have just a full-on adult Pope version of hissy fit and dig up his remains and burn his remains. John Huss was in Bohemia, which is now modern-day Czech Republic. And remember, John Huss is important because his followers were called the Hussites originally, but then some of his other groups that continued to follow him even into more modern times, one of those groups is called the Moravians. Basically the same group, followers of John Huss. And the Moravians are the ones who, under the leadership of Count von Zinzendorf, another name I just love saying, ended up founding Bethlehem, Pennsylvania during colonial times. And they were the ones, we talked about this last year, and you'll have it again next year in 8th grade. So, when we start talking about the Moravians, I want you to be able to remember, oh yeah, John Huss. Oh yeah, before the Protestant Reformation in Bohemia. That's that guy. And then we talked about the printing press. And like I said, and like you saw in your test, printing press is hugely important because printing press was 1440 was the actual printing press. The Bible was first printed Bible was 1456. Hugely important that the printing press came out at the time that people were starting to try to get the Bible in the language of the people, in everybody's hands, not just the priest's hands. And the printing press is going to make it easier. Then we get to Erasmus. Don't worry about the dude's first name. He's known as Erasmus. You say that name, people who know history and Bible stuff are going to know who you're talking about. Erasmus realizes there were some mistakes in translating from the original Greek to Latin. And then if we're going to try to get the Bible in the language of the people instead of Latin, if we take that Latin Vulgate that Jerome had come up with and then transfer that to English or to French or to whatever it is, we're going to have double the translation mistakes. And so he's like, we got to get it back to the original Greek, which is what he did. And then other people came along and took Erasmus's Bible and translated into English or into Swiss or French or German or whatever it may be, without any real mistakes. There may be some slight differences, but they're not mistakes. There's differences in how Latin and how Greek language works, the order of the words and that kind of stuff. Greek has like 3 different words for love and we have one. That kind of difference. Then we talked about Martin Luther. And Martin Luther will flat out admit it that one time he hated God because he was under this Catholic Church idea of you had to work your way to heaven. He's like, hey, there's no way I can work my way to heaven. I'm a hot mess and I know it. And God's out to get me, so why should I like him? And then he ended up going to Wittenberg University and really studying the Bible for himself, including the book of Romans. And he realized as he was reading it, the just shall live by faith. It's through faith that we are saved. By grace through faith, not by works. And all of a sudden it was like, ding, light bulb moment. He realizes what it's all about, what the Bible's about, who Jesus is, why he came. And he realizes other people need to know this. And the Catholic Church needs to realize that they're wrong. So he tries to just list 95 things that is wrong with the Catholic Church and the selling of indulgences and all that, and post it, we think, on the church door. There's some debate about that for everybody to see so that we could talk about and make changes in the church. Of course, the church doesn't like it. So instead, he ends up starting the Protestant Reformation. The church would have probably killed him, except for he gets kidnapped. Because as it turns out, a German prince didn't like the Pope anyway, and there was already issues between the Pope and this German prince, so the German prince kidnaps Martin Luther and says he's dead, so he can be hidden to make changes in the church. And so that's how chapter 13 ends, is with 13.3 ends, is the different changes that he makes in the church. Then it talks about how the Reformation spreads to other places, like Switzerland. And you have Zwingli in Zurich. I just love saying that. But that's in Switzerland. And then you have Calvin in Geneva, France. And that's how chapter 13 ends up. Chapter 14 goes back to Germany, where the Protestant Reformation began with Martin Luther. 14.1, if you don't have your book, pause me and get it. At the time of the Reformation, the people of Germany were held down by the system of feudalism. We spent a lot of time talking about feudalism. But basically that means that the majority of the people would have been peasants who would have been tied to the land, who would have been struggling to survive. It was, and it goes on to talk about how bad it is for the peasants in Germany. Before the Protestant Reformation, the peasants had revolted at least 5 times. So there was already a whole lot of unrest going on in Germany. When Martin Luther preached salvation by faith, many peasants were converted. By the way, you need to go back and reread all of 14.1. I'm highlighting bits and pieces of it, and then you'll go back and read it all on your own. Martin Luther, when he preached salvation by faith, many peasants were converted. They were hoping that this spiritual freedom would lead to a better life, that would help to free them from the tyranny of the church. They also hoped that the preaching of the true scriptural Christianity in Germany would change lives and influence the feudal lords. So in other words, they're hoping that the Protestant Reformation will also change the hearts, the minds of their the nobles who are so beating them down, and make things better for them. So they send these 12 articles, these things that they hope will be changed to Martin Luther. And Martin Luther doesn't do what they thought he would. He doesn't take sides. He's like, I'm not here trying to solve the problems of the feudalistic system. I'm trying to point out the problems with the Catholic Church's teachings, which is not what the peasants wanted. He's not saying that the nobles are right. He's saying, hey, dudes, you got some issues here that you need to fix. But he's saying to the peasants that revolting isn't going to fix anything either. He said there in italics on page 148, he was trying to make it clear that Christianity must be thought of Christianity must not be thought of as a revolutionary political movement. It's about a relationship with God. It's not a political movement. And if we turn around and try to make the Protestant Reformation political, then we're going to be doing basically the same thing that the Catholic Church was doing, with the whole tying together, with the donation of the Papal States, tying together the Pope and the Emperor or the King, or whatever the leader may be. He's like, that's not going to work. That's not going to jive. And so because all of this change is causing all this revolt, which is not what he wanted, we ended up with state churches. And so that's what the map there is on page 149, is the different types of denominations and how it all kind of lines out as to which group ends up with what type of state church. And so, like I said, you'll read 14.1 on your own. And then I lost my my notes here about what you're going to do. So today, you'll do Simple Solutions 59. You will read 14.1. You'll watch this lovely video where I try to tie it all together and hopefully make it a little bit easier. 14.1 is a pretty short section. I think I may end up actually doing multiple videos for you all this week. So we'll just start with that for right now. And I may do another video tomorrow, but even if I don't, you'll just keep reading, keep working on Simple Solutions. So that is it. I hope you all have a great Monday. Don't forget literature. I hope you all had a great Thanksgiving. See you tomorrow, maybe definitely Wednesday. There'll be another video.